Ah, Forrest Gump, a movie with history, culture, an award-winning cast, and memorable quotes such as,
Bubba said there's my magic shoes. Bubba said they'd take me anywhere. Of course, Bubba used to beat me with rubber hose, call me retard.
Dude, please stop.
Okay, that last one was made up, but today I want to take a look at one of the most recognizable movies from the 90s next to Jurassic Park, Space Jam, or Chairman of the Board. What the fuck is Chairman of the Board? Who cares? We're talking about Forrest Gump. Yes, the lovable flat top with the quirky anecdotes and heart of gold. Believe it or not, the movie tugs on my heartstrings. My loose and weightless heartstrings. One day I'll figure out where my heart went. So I was planning on spending the duration of this video going through the ups and downs of such a widely known classic. But in my research surrounding the community of individuals who think the movie is racist, sexist, and a whitewashing of history and culture, yes, you heard that correct, the fictitious movie about a man with a learning disability who likes to run and play ping pong is whitewashing other cultures and history. So during my research, I stumbled across this article completely bashing the film, and I want to take a moment to break down each argument and pick it apart. Okay, so the article is on Ranker and written by Katya Klayman, and is titled 16 Extremely Messed Up Things About Forrest Gump That'll Change How You See It. I seriously fucking doubt it, Katya. It's actually super disturbing that Forrest and Jenny have sex. Okay, so for this first part, Katya claims that Forrest's brain isn't developed beyond that of a child, so him having sex with any willing participant is borderline statutory. There seems to be a lot of speculation with what his disability was, but I haven't found anything concrete. For all we know, he had a serious speech impediment.
Negative part.
So not forget that Jenny was very seriously mentally ill. I'm not going to get into her life story. You either know it or you can Google it, but let's not assume she was in her right mind. Katya follows it up with, you don't just have sex with a mentally challenged person and then expect them not to be totally obsessed with you for the rest of their lives. Well, how the fuck would you know, Katya? Are you mentally challenged? Probably, but that shit didn't happen until the end of the movie. A lot of character growth and emotional depth was reached before we even bridged that gap. Some might argue that she did it out of some pity or because she wasn't very well herself, but I think she knew after all this time she did love Forrest, but was unable to express it properly. The idea is it's left up to interpretation. It's okay to be racist if you don't know any better. I'm just going to go ahead and quote her on this. In the opening scene, Forrest is sitting on a bus bench next to a nameless black woman and begins to tell her his story, even though she is clearly disinterested. He told her that his mama named him after a Civil War hero named General Nathan Bedford Forrest. This is an extremely poor example of racism, even if you disregard the fact that he's a bit slow on the uptake. Katya is saying that regardless of who you are in this country and what's in your heart, if you have any ties to white racist shit from the past, be that ancestors, family, friends, your first crush, hell, even your own first name, you should be ashamed of yourself for that thing that you held no control over, and should bury it deep down and never tell anyone, especially other races, even if that thing had something worth remembering about it. It portrays mentally disabled people as not having much of a personality. What the fuck are you even talking about? She goes on about how Forrest doesn't have much to say and that his interests are limited because of his disability and that it's somehow stereotyping his disability. Well, without a clear answer to what he suffers from, we can't go off of his disability. Just assume he's a bit slow. Otherwise, he likes running, ping pong, landscaping, Jenny, sightseeing. Does he need more? Fuck. Even I only have one or two hobbies, and I'm kind of all there. And what the fuck do you mean that he's bland? He narrates his entire story from start to finish. His personality is expressed through his emotion, a change of tone, a shift in delivery. Forrest Gump steals credit for black people's accomplishments. Okay, this one's really funny, so I'm just gonna read it. Forrest is given so much credit in the movie for all things that he's completely oblivious to. In one scene, he's given credit for helping break the segregation barrier. In another, he's given credit for stopping the Watergate burglary. In real life, the man who caught the Watergate burglars was a black security guard named Frank Wills. He is also given credit for teaching Elvis his moves when in fact Elvis stole them from black performance artists. It's like Zemeckis thought, how can I really make sure white people are cemented in the cultural imagination as the greatest heroes of all time? Got it. Have a mentally disabled white dude steal a bunch of black people's shit. She calls it shit, not me. Need more proof? Check out his other huge hit, Back to the Future. Marty McFly invents rock and roll for some reason and robs black artists of that accolade. What? Are you telling me a white suburban high school teenager and his disgraced scientific companion didn't go back in time to create Johnny Be Good? Damn you, Zemeckis! I trusted you. Honestly, this conclusion stretches further than the pussy that wrote this shit, considering every other accomplishment Forrest received throughout the film, but we're only nitpicking the ones related to race exclusively, aren't we? I mean, was anyone under the impression that this film was non-fiction, or that Forrest Gump is a real person? But besides that, Forrest takes credit for a lot of real-world achievements that weren't his, because he's not a real person and he's a made-up character. And they weren't all black people, believe it or not. This is tantamount to calling me racist for accusing Steve here of stealing chocolate bars and dicking down every married woman he's ever worked with. But what if Steve looked like this? Or what if he was stealing candy bars and laying pipe with all of his coworkers? When you erase the concept of skin color or gender or anything else, we're all the same miserable people. It would be no different than spreading office rumors for the sake of your own sick amusement. So let's save the racism card for people who act out of pocket because you're skin color. And speaking of out of pocket comments, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you about my goal of 1,000 subs before 2025. Could we do it? Of course. Could we do it better? If we put our minds to it, could we rule the world with an unstoppable army? You better fucking believe it. The portrayal of Bubba is pretty racist. Oh, for fuck's sake. No, it isn't. Bubba is the only major black character in the film. He's pretty much void of emotion and personality and just talks about shrimp all the time. Perhaps most contemptibly, director Robert Zemeckis made Williams, Bubba's actor, wear a prosthetic lip enhancement. Why was that necessary? The bigger the lips, the more black he is? Totally racist. Is this fucking satire? Okay, you understand what an underbite is, right? You aren't just assuming that Randall from Monsters, Inc. showed up with a scream-sucking machine and made him into a racial caricature, I presume. This absolute goober goes on to say that this role ruined future prospects for the actor because other casting directors just assumed Bubba's actor was as one-dimensional as the character. I would love to hear how she arrived at that conclusion. It's super sexist. Most of the women are manipulative and damaged. God, you must be the shittiest movie companion. She at least starts this portion on a high note, giving Forrest's mother credit for being the opposition to this wildly stupid accusation she's conjured up. She then continues to say that Forrest's mother, although independent, owning her own home and business and doing so as a single parent, was still in need of a man because she slept with the principal of Forrest's school to keep him from a special needs education. That's right, ladies. If you've ever made a decision, be it by yourself, your family, or even for the hell of it, and a man was involved, you're just playing into the traditional values and have no opinions or free will of your own. Are we under the assumption that had she not slept with him, he wouldn't have been in charge of where Forrest went to school? I'm starting to get the feeling that Katya here just doesn't like straight white men. Forrest Gump is full of cliches and annoying catchphrases. Okay, I'm just gonna skip this one. She doesn't really make much of an argument here. Just some nonsense about the over-abused one-liners and cliche characters such as the hardworking single mom, the damaged, promiscuous victim of child abuse, the hardened war veteran suffering from PTSD, the mentally disabled billionaire that loves to run, the comic relief pair of amputated legs, the hippie bus with a chip on its shoulder and a heart of gold. This guy. What kind of films are you watching that a damaged, promiscuous victim of child abuse has become a cliche at this point? Forrest Gump has no agency. Everything is an accident. This is such a fucking stupid argument. The movie plays on a lot of what-ifs, and I think a bit of divine intervention if Lieutenant Dan's character arc is anything to be believed. To assume everything was by accident is tantamount to beating a disabled child because he has a speech impediment. Just because you didn't get it doesn't mean that it doesn't have a purpose or a point. He was a football star because of how fast he could run. He joined the military because he was recruited. He became a hero because he wouldn't leave his friend behind. It's not like he went on to be a ping pong champion because he played it once and lucked out. He was really good and he had a talent for it. Not unlike your knack for victimizing everyone you see as marginalized. You know, the direction that this article is heading, Katya, I'm starting to think that you might have some personal racist or sexist bigotries you're trying to hide with the overcorrection of what's right and wrong. Forrest Gump never really develops. Okay, this is getting borderline offensive. It's unbelievable that the person Katya spends her article calling a moron, stupid, and an idiot is actually smarter than her. Listen, I don't know if you're incapable of seeing the tonal shift throughout the movie or just ignoring it to make your point, but from the protectiveness that he holds over Jenny, the love and pain from the loss of his friend and eventually his mother, the moment he decides to start running again after Jenny leaves him, and his reaction to finding out that he's a father, to say he doesn't grow as a character is truly just fucking irresponsible as someone playing a critic. Civil rights are not important to the film. You mean like the civil rights you brought up earlier about segregation? Of course not. You know it's counterproductive to your point. Instead, you're discussing the Black Panther Party. Another example Katya forces down your throat about racism because we didn't spend another 10 minutes focusing on the matter and giving it a louder voice. Not unlike that of the Vietnam protests and Abby Hoffman, or the sexual abuse that Jenny faced as a child that was semi-glossed over to help build out Jenny's character, or even Lieutenant Dan's struggle being a US vet, being looked down on and not getting the help that he needed from the VA. But none of these problems matter because those people were white. Am I right, Katya? It panders to conservatives and portrays the left as useless hippies. Have you ever considered that some individuals, regardless of what side of the fence they're on, are actually just useless? Take you, for example, Katya. You've been given a platform to spread awareness, and you've used it to bash a movie that's over 30 years old, and you aren't even doing a good job of it. So yeah, some of the hippies come off as just stoners because they aren't given more than a few lines. Yes, Jenny's boyfriend is a piece of shit woman beater. Does that mean he wasn't intelligent or charismatic? No, just means he was shitty. The film didn't give him much of a voice, and for good reason. This movie wasn't about a generation of history past. It's about a mentally disabled man overcoming the challenges of growing up through that generation. Fucking troglodyte. Politics are not important, like at all. I already made my point in the last section. Female promiscuity is gross and punishable by death. Here we go again. Katya's a one-trick pony. She's gonna beat this narrative to death, even if she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Okay, so we know the film is sexist. No, it isn't, even considering it's your opinion. It's based on two prostitutes with 10 minutes worth of roles and Jenny having a miserable upbringing like tragedies don't exist in the world. She goes on to state that Jenny's promiscuity and free love lifestyle was what ultimately claimed her life, even though they never specify what incurable disease she had or if it was even sexually transmitted. Katya is once again drawing her own narratives based upon her own prejudices. Anti-conformity and skepticism is punished. Okay, so you can pause and read that goofy shit for yourself, but essentially, or at least how she's formatted it, she's saying that Lieutenant Dan is the best character because he doesn't conform to society's standards and isn't afraid to question the man, but that he tragically loses his legs and has to suffer, only to get them back when he conforms, which is wild to write down and even wilder to read and still commit to. First of all, we know nothing about Lieutenant Dan before the war, and we're only briefly introduced to him before he loses his legs. He's not a rebel or anti-conformist, you fucking moron. He's a depressed alcoholic who can't get the proper assistance from the VA, and it's led him down a dark path. He didn't fucking get his legs back because he conformed. He made a decision to go into business with his friend and partner, and that paid off, and several years later they designed titanium legs for disabled people such as himself. Forrest Gump is complete Oscar bait. Just no. The audience can engage due to the film's scope. Actually, I think she might be right on the money with this point. I mean, you can't really engage with it if you're as stupid as she is. Of course you can't pull anything from a 2-hour movie when spoon-fed dialogue is the only thing your brain is capable of engaging with, when all the characters seem one or two-dimensional because that's how you view life. If everything is black and white to you, of course you're going to have a jaded view on a movie that covers sensitive topics that doesn't portray the characters how you want to see them. Nobody was absolutely perfect in this film, and that's part of the point. In conclusion, Katya, considering the number of times you've accused the movie of being racist or pandering to rich white conservatives, I'm not entirely surprised that you're a white female. You guys love to act underappreciated and make other people's problems your own, even when you can't and won't take the time to understand it. Oh, did I just profile you? That wasn't very nice, was it? So that's all the time I have, and this is going to be a longer one, so I'm wishing luck to my editor. I know he said he didn't want any sort of representation, but a big shout out to him and my channel artist. Both of them do a fantastic job in making my nonsense clickable or even watchable. If you haven't already, consider subscribing. I'm working towards my goal of 1,000 subs before the end of this year, and I could really use your help. If you're stuck around this long, why not give the video a like and let me know what your favorite Forrest Gump moment in the comments section is. Until next time though, be well.